Welcome to this week's Foundation Friday. I am joined by Shawn Smith, the CEO and founder of Dedicated Financial GVC, to discuss Minnesota Good Works. Thanks for joining me, Shawn.
Thanks, Jesse. Excited to be on and talk about such a good cause.
No, I mean, and based on all the work that Dedicated does, to local foundations and charities and just national foundations and charities, I'm sure I could have you on once a week, but unfortunately we have to share the platform with others.
Yeah, I'm connected to close to about 20 nonprofits and some one shape, form, or way or the other. So definitely, if you ever need a fill-in, just give me a call. I'm happy to jump on and talk about any of them. So.
Nope, fair enough. And then I was, a couple weeks ago when we were in Minnesota for our second, annual EFC Minnesota. You introduced me to, or introduced the audience to Minnesota Good Works. Do you mind just kind of, for people who might not be familiar with that foundation, just talk about it real quick?
Yeah, I've known Donna, the executive director, for over a decade. I met her serving in a program years ago, and there was this original viral video. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was of a homeless veteran where they gave him a trim and put him in a suit, and it went viral. And I was just like, man, her and I were talking about this 10 years ago of like, well, we could find a barber, we could find places that would give clothes, and we could go out and try to help the homeless. And at that time, it was interesting. We just really couldn't get traction with it. And like we thought, optimists typically do this. We're just like, of course, everyone's going to want to jump in and help. You know what I mean? Like, especially with that video going viral. But the cool thing was it planted a seed in her heart to do something for the homeless, for those who are coming out of trafficking, and just really helping people. And that seed grew and grew and grew. And she's worked in human resources in one of our largest counties for just over a decade. And as you can imagine, working in government and seeing so many people coming in for assistance and needing help, and then also being very actively involved in the nonprofit side, you begin to see where the cracks are, where the government is really helping in this lane and this lane and this lane, and then the nonprofits are like, hey, we've helped this many people do this specific thing. But what happens is all these people fall through the cracks where there is no one helping. Right. So a lot of nonprofits can speak to like, we provided X number of homes for somebody or X number of meals for somebody. And that stuff's great. I don't want to put that down at all. But there's things like helping people get licenses. Okay, you have a place, but you have no job, or you have no furniture or no way to take care of a baby, or, so there's all these things where it can be really overwhelming. And so the recidivism rate of people falling out of programs to help and ending back on the streets is super high. And that was kind of the design of Minnesota Good Works. The seed that was planted in Donna's heart is, can we come out with something that isn't designed to replace all the good works that the government and nonprofits are doing, but rather look at them and come in and fill gaps where those where people are falling out at a very high rate. And right around the time she was looking to start this, and we were deciding kind of which direction we were going to at least start with, the FBI came out with a report that Minnesota is ranked the third highest for sex trafficking in the entire United States. Now, I think to anyone in the United States, that would be surprising. But as a Minnesotan, and you're Minnesota nice, and we're kind of up here in the frozen north, like, you think there's just no way our state, we have Minneapolis, St. Paul, we have Rochester with the Mayo, and Duluth up on Lake Superior. Obviously there's bigger cities outside of it, but it's a very rural state outside of it, a lot of farmland, a lot of rolling hills, right? But every county in Minnesota has reported sex trafficking, which is wild. I'm thinking some of the remote counties here and there, And so that was kind of the focus of starting. And it was, thanks again for letting us highlight it at the event here. It was really good. So much positive feedback from that event. So yeah, that was kind of the background and bringing it to life. And Donna asked me to come on as one of the founding board members. And that's like saying, hey, do you want to do a startup together.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know what that's like being the first couple of years of equipment finance cares. It just is, it's all consuming. It's not a 9 to 5, and it ultimately ends up being that way for the board as well, where it is a lot more work than just coming into a 20-year plug and play, just trying to inch forward the mission of a nonprofit, right? And so kudos to you for being willing to do that, because I know, having engaged in several startups, both in the nonprofit and business sector, that it is very challenging. So that was kind of the background, the impetus, and the focus is going to be initially helping victims of trafficking here in Minnesota that are seeking help. Because first you have to like kind of want help, right? Then you have to seek it. Then you have to be willing to receive it. And then ultimately from that graduate to where you're in a giving back. So that's kind of the sequence in which we want to come in and partner with people, as the ones who are seeking help, and maybe they're getting it. And so we have a lot of partners throughout the state, and some we're developing, where basically they're like, hey, we do housing, but our people are struggling after this. They don't have any furniture or something like that. Or like, hey, we got them a place, but they don't even have a license. So let's help them get a license, or things like that. So that's kind of the focus of Minnesota Good Works, is filling in those cracks, and really right now focusing on helping victims of trafficking in all of its forms.
Thank you for that. So when people make a donation, Shawn, where do those donated dollars go?
So like right now, the goal of Minnesota Good Works is to have all of our corporate sponsors kind of cover costs. So right now, all of the donated funds are going to our program that basically, I don't want to say, we call it an enrichment program, and kind of think of it as like a one-on-one mentorship, but more than that. The goal is to create kind of lifelong connections. I would liken it in a way to how a lot of people that go through AA become lifelong friends with their sponsor, right? Because that sponsor ends up pouring into them a lot and being there for them. It isn't just about helping them in the specific thing. It ends up bleeding into more. And that's really the enrichment program, is come in and fill those gaps, create one-on-one mentorship, create a strong relationship. Because really, people, Donna says this, that this moves at the speed of trust, right? So people have to trust the mentor and trust the process, and know, man, that they have their best interest in mind, that they're not going to leave them stranded halfway through the program, things like that. So all donated funds right now to Minnesota Good Works are going to that enrichment program to cover those type of things. How can we, not just, the mentors aren't getting paid, right? That's a volunteer position, but you're looking on average of about probably $1,000 to $1,500 a month. We're working on getting more specific metrics as we get it's a new nonprofit. So Minnesota Good Works was realistically just launched. We're actually still technically being warehoused under an existing nonprofit till the tax exemption status, which the government's moving, obviously a little bit.
Trust me, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, kind of at the speed of smell at this point, right? So but yeah, so that's what the donated funds are going to. 100% right now is into that enrichment program, where people can partner with them. We can come in and figure out what those gaps are, and with a goal of getting someone to move from wanting help to receiving help, to kind of getting to a fully functional contributing person back in society, that then is motivated to turn back and give back. So one of the cool things with our gala coming up this fall is we have a woman who's doing just that, coming in and speaking, someone who was a victim of trafficking, who has worked her way out of that, and now she's turning around and giving back. So that's kind of the hope, is that we would be able to inspire people, and not necessarily give back in this exact field, but to live a life focused on, hey, someone came in and helped me out, filled in those gaps, allowed me to get back up on my feet and actually get back to a healthy place. And now I'm going to figure out how I can give back in different ways and help others. Right. And so that's kind of the arc of the goal there. So that's where the funds would be going right now. Eventually that will grow into um, homeless initiatives and other big areas where there is high recidivism rates, or just repeat people falling out of the program, coming back. So there's other areas we want to focus on, but we're just focusing on trafficking right now. I mean, there's just crazy statistics. I mean, number 3 in the United States, 13 is the average age of someone going into prostitution in Minnesota. 44% of victims report being offered help while in the life, but then they don't take it. So like close to half of them. Another 26% rarely being offered help. Only 15% of independent sex workers are not involved with like a pimp or trafficker. So most people are being run, being groomed, being forced, being held captive into that life. And, a lot of them just, even if they get offered help, they don't see a viable way out, because they know, okay, I can get this one amount of help, but I have all these other things that I have no idea how to get help with. Right. And so it's
some of those stats when you were walking through them a couple of weeks ago, unfortunately in today's world nothing really shocks me, but when you sit there and you hear 13 in third highest state, what's the first and second states that are in front of Minnesota? Do you have any idea?
I don't off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
I was just more curiosity, because it's like you didn't think that. And then Jeremy, my son, was at that event and he's 13, and I can't imagine that age and being thrown into that life.
Well, and I think most people think that it is only it's like primarily female, but there's a strong percentage of males that get into this life, and it's really what pushed Donna over the edge to start Minnesota Good Works, because obviously she's working full time. She's not just hopping right into the ed position. She has a full-time career, and it stems from, she lives about 45 minutes out from the Twin Cities, so like out there, right? Like that's on the far edges of the suburbs, to say the least. She's not far from farmland, right? And she lives in a townhouse community out there. And I think somewhere around between midnight and 2 a.m., she wakes up to a man mostly naked, covered in blood, pounding on her door. And of course, she's going through their townhouse community neighborhood, pounding on the door. And so they call the cops. Cops show up. It took days to even figure out what language the man spoke. And eventually Donna followed up with a detective, like, what was going on? She had to like scrub blood off her siding and off her door and, her cement and all this stuff. And I guess they took him 2 or 3 days to even figure out what language he spoke. And then ultimately found out that he was a victim of trafficking. He'd been held against his will. And while being transported, he got the door unlocked and jumped out of a car on the freeway that's near her house. So 50, 60 miles an hour or whatever, 70 out there, and ran through woods to her area, So it goes both ways. But it also comes back to, most people have a daughter or a niece or a 13-year-old son, just to think about how well you know them. And that was the motivation for me, Jesse, in doing this, is that if it was my kid in that, and it's the same reason I do work in Haiti and I do the other work, I would fight until my last breath for my own child. The world would stop, business wouldn't matter. All that would matter would be my kid. And so I feel like the least I can do is something to help those, and hearing stories like Donna, I told it at the Equipment Finance Cares, but there was a story of a girl, we'll just call her Megan for the sake of this vlog, but Megan gets into a situation where her parents are going through divorce. It's a really toxic environment at home. Go start staying out with friends. And I don't have the statistic in front of me, but it's something like a very short period of time before people start getting offered basically once they get on the street to perform basically sexual favors for somewhere to, it's within 48 hours of being homeless, 14 to 20% of youth have engaged in sexual activities for food, shelter, and money, right? So within 48 hours. And so this girl, of course, ends up on the street. And next thing you know, she finds herself locked in a bedroom in an affluent suburb of Minnesota. If anyone, most people think, oh, it's going to be down in a ghetto type area. And really, no, this was in an affluent suburb named Maple Grove here in the Twin Cities. And she ended up being chained up for a year in that apartment. And finally, neighbors thought there was a drug operation going out of there because of all the people going in and out of the apartment. And when they go in and they bust the place, here's a now 15-year-old girl, right, who had been doing sometimes 30 to 70 acts like a day or some crazy statistic like that. And, again, I come back to this place of like, if that was my kid, what would my life have been like for that year trying to find my child, right? And I don't know, it just hit me where like I can't solve all the world's problems, but I happen to have a background in startups and nonprofits and stuff, and I can lend my time and advice and some resources to helping Minnesota Good Works get off the ground. And I think I say this to all the board members, right now we have people just getting into the enrichment program. It's just starting. But what is it going to be like when you see people graduating from that program and all of the work and time and effort and donations you've put into helping that, to see someone come from that 13, 14, 15, 18, 21, 25-year-old who's stuck in that life to out of it, working, has their own place, has their own car, has healthy relationships, has a great mentor, and words can't describe how thankful they feel for the work we did at Minnesota Good Works, right? That's the payoff. So it's a crazy deal. And I think, as it pertains to the equipment finance industry, this is the power of us taking our time and doing things like Equipment Finance Cares, coming to the events, connecting with like-minded people who say, you know what, I have a career. This is what I'm good at. This is what my background is, but I have some time or have some resources or have some connections. Let me donate to that. Let me volunteer for that. Let me get involved. Or maybe not with what Shawn or Jesse specifically doing, but I have something over here that I could tie to my business or what I do, or the time I spent. And the payoff on that, quite frankly, I've won awards, I've, made big, commission checks, something like that. Nothing ever compares to doing something good for someone else and watching their life blossom from that because of something you were able to do. If you can help someone in a way that they never can really truly repay you, the payoff on that transcends any success you can have in this world. But you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone, whether it be with your time or with your checkbook or talking with your boss or with your company or, dedicated markets. A lot what we do, not in a bragging way, but is an excited saying, this is what business can do if it's focused on helping people over just making profit, if it's focused on how to be significant to others versus just how successful it can be for the corporation or the owners, this is the power of what it can do. And if we can do it, quite frankly, in our industry, anyone can do it. And the payoff, it transcends money and things big time. Sorry, get off.
No, it's no, dude. You know me. I always like your passion, Shawn. For anything that you involve yourself in, and appreciate you sharing some additional insights today on Minnesota Good Works.
Yeah, thank you. People can go and especially if there's some local folks in our area. Minnesota's a hotbed for equipment finance. To be able to give back to help people in a high trafficking state. Maybe consider being a sponsor of the mentorship program where you sponsor one person. You do like a $1,500 a month sponsorship. Now, I'm not going to speak for anyone else in the industry, but at the end of the day, every company I know in Minnesota that they could handle $1,500 a month to sponsor someone in that enrichment program, right? And now they wouldn't be able to know the exact name unless that person ever got comfortable enough, but to hear their story and where they came from, and to be a part of that as a business, to talk about how you as an equipment finance leader gave back to that, right? That would be so powerful. That's one of the reasons why we're a sponsor and involved, right? Like, and I would want to do business with that, right?
Yeah.
Like to say like you're investing in people coming out of trafficking, like how cool is that? To create restoration in someone's life. So check out, I just ask people check out minnesotagoodworks.com, follow us on social media, get it signed up for our newsletter. That contact, that sharing of the content we put out, stats, especially to the Minnesota group out there. I implore you to invite your contacts, share the content, connect with it, and see where you can get involved, because right now it's a homegrown effort, but we actually have other states where the people are looking at our model that we're already developing and saying, we can't wait till we can start Colorado Good Works or Texas Good Works, because they're already saying, yes, this is so needed, because there's so many good government and nonprofit programs that are doing great things. But the rate of people falling out of them is so high because of these gaps. This is needed. But people have to get involved. People have to donate their time or their money or their effort or their influence or their resource, whatever they have, to make things like these happen. So that'd be my ask. If anything, just liking and following is a free thing, but it gains influence and allows the traction to get out there and for people to know about it.
Excellent, Shawn. Well, once again, I appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you here at an upcoming event, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.